The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society, 2008, penned by Mary Ann Shaffer and Annie Barrows, stands as an epistolary historical novel unfolding in the year 1946. Following the conclusion of World War II, Juliet Ashton, a writer beset by formidable writer's block, seeks fresh muse for her forthcoming book. Unexpectedly, she initiates a correspondence with a cluster of inhabitants from Guernsey who refer to themselves as the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. Gradually, this interaction prompts her to contemplate composing a book chronicling their experiences as British citizens living through the Nazi occupation during the war. The story commences with a missive from Juliet to her publisher, detailing the thriving progress of her ongoing book tour and candidly confessing her struggles with advancing the new book, mandated by her contract. During the war, she assumed the persona of Izzy Bickerstaff to write a series of light-hearted columns, yet now she aspires to retire the guise and explore fresh creative paths. Amidst this creative impasse, she establishes an engaging exchange with Dawsey Adams, who came into possession of one of her earlier books, an anthology of essays by Charles Lamb. Discovering her name and address within, he reaches out to inquire whether she can help him procure more works related to the author. Since obtaining books was a challenge on the isolated Guernsey island, which remained cut off from the mainland and under Nazi rule for most of the war, Juliet finds herself intrigued by the request and reciprocates in letter form. This marks the inception of their correspondence. In subsequent letters, Dawsey divulges the society's origin story, harkening back to a covert pig roast event. When the Nazis occupied the island, they meticulously documented all livestock and resources. Yet, one shrewd resident managed to conceal a solitary pig. On a clandestine night, a group among them decided to slaughter and consume the pig. Had they been apprehended, dire consequences, even execution, awaited. As fortune had it, they were caught outdoors past curfew and were compelled to concoct a plausible reason for their gathering. Ingenious in her thinking, Elizabeth swiftly fabricates a story, asserting that they constitute a book club and inadvertently lost track of time. The Nazi commandant accepts her explanation, prompting them to establish an authentic book club to uphold the facade. Meanwhile, Juliet's Izzy Bickerstaff book garners remarkable success, and she becomes a target of Mark Reynolds, a wealthy American intent on expanding his publishing domain by luring her away from Sydney, her close friend and current publisher. Mark's constant bouquet deliveries evolve into a romantic courtship, and their connection deepens when he invites her to dinner. Ignoring Sydney's reservations about Mark's intentions, Juliet becomes enmeshed in a passionate affair, one that nearly culminates in marriage before she ultimately ends it later in the narrative. Juliet's network of pen pals starts expanding, courtesy of Dawsey's introduction of her to the other society members. Inspired to compose an article for the Times literary supplement about their experiences, Juliet receives character references from each member. In response, they write to her, disclosing fragments of their stories and sharing their favorite books and the reasons behind their preferences. Isola, an eccentric herbalist, quickly bonds with Juliet and later forms a friendship with Sydney. Amelia, the host of the daring pig roast that initiated their connection, holds a pivotal place among them. John, who impersonated his employer and was sent to a concentration camp when exposed, contributes his perspective. Will, the mastermind behind the first potato peel pie, a culinary invention driven by extreme rationing, shares his story. The islanders faced dire conditions as they resorted to consuming vegetable peelings due to limited resources during the war. Eben, an elderly member, recounts the children's evacuation just before the German invasion, detailing the islanders' perilous proximity to starvation. Unable to access provisions due to Allied barricades, the Germans plundered gardens, consumed anything edible, and even turned to eating pets and rotten sustenance. However, Elizabeth emerges as the linchpin of the society's structure, holding a pivotal role among its members. Much of the narrative revolves around the enigmatic fate of Elizabeth, which eventually unveils that she perished at Ravensbrück in March 1945. The poignancy deepens as the reader gains insight into her character through the reminiscences of her companions. Elizabeth, a luminous, compassionate, and dauntless woman, consistently chose the moral path without hesitation. Her arrest stems from her sheltering a fugitive slave. Additionally, she engages in a relationship with a German officer, Dr. Christian Hillman, who proves to be a man of integrity. However, before Elizabeth gives birth to their daughter, Christian is assigned elsewhere and tragically loses his life in combat. Following her apprehension, her society friends collectively raise her daughter, Kit. The story takes an even more somber turn when a letter arrives from Remy, a fellow inmate at Ravensbrück, conveying the details of Elizabeth's life and tragic demise at the camp. Elizabeth's execution resulted from her valiant defense of a woman who was brutally assaulted by a guard, yet the camp's records were obliterated prior to liberation. Prompted by her growing connection with her pen pals, Juliet decides to venture to Guernsey for a personal meeting. She swiftly becomes captivated by the island's charm and is hesitant to return to London. Sidney follows suit, forging a bond with Isola during his stay. Juliet's affections for Guernsey deepen, especially for the eccentric society members, Dawsey and Kit. On the other hand, her relationship with Mark fizzles out due to her reluctance to comply with his demands, ultimately leading to their breakup. Uninterested in returning to London or becoming a trophy wife in America, Juliet discovers a stronger connection with Dawsey. The novel culminates with Juliet's union with Dawsey, her decision to relocate to Guernsey permanently, her adoption of Kit, and her commitment to writing a book about Elizabeth. In its essence, the novel sheds light on the human toll inflicted by war. Despite the letter's wit and charm, and the story's eventual joyful resolution, a somber undercurrent persists throughout the narrative, rooted in past losses, fear, scarcity, and cruelty. The book's reception was overwhelmingly positive, amassing an ardent group of fans, and even ascending to the #1 position on the New York Times bestseller list. Furthermore, it clinched the Indie's Choice Book Award for Best Indie Buzz Book in 2009. In 2018, the novel underwent adaptation into a film by Netflix, featuring Jessica Brown Findlay of Downton Abbey fame in the role of Julie. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe. Thank you.